I'm sure many players and coaches can feel it in the moment, whether their lineup is solid or not. But if you ask them to explain it clearly, they often can't. They'll just say, the lineup's messed up, or that pick doesn't fit. As a audience, we might say, one team's BP got totally outclassed, but from the team's perspective, that lineup could actually be the perfect fit for their playstyle at that moment. So, what really defines a good or bad BP? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Here's how I see it. A good BP should first and foremost highlight the strengths of all 5 players, while also be best for the current patch and the game pace. On top of that, it needs to align with your team's playstyle. If it also happens to counter the opponent's core strategy, even better. Of course, you can't always tick every box in a single BP, but covering most of these aspects already makes it a strong one in my book. So, what about a bad BP? Well, if you ignore your players' hero pools, try to force a lineup that doesn't suit your playstyle, or go against the current meta, or worse, if it gets countered on your main win conditions, then yeah, your BP probably isn't up to par. When it comes to building a solid BP, there are 4 key things to consider: your players' hero pools, the current patch's OP picks, your team's overall playstyle, and the opponent's BP strategies. These elements, combined with a coach's own approach or philosophy, are what really shape your draft decisions. Let's start with hero pools. Top-tier teams from the KPL and overseas HOK leagues often have players with very unique hero preferences, and when a player has a signature pick, it can heavily influence how the entire lineup is built. For example, the jungler of Korea's Nong Shim, Haku is known for his rare but deadly Heino pick. You don't see this hero often in pro play, but in his hands, it's a different story. In S3 Finals Game 1, Haku locked in Heino as the 4th pick, and the whole lineup was built around it. They picked Sun Ce for the side lane and Mai Shiranui mid, both picks that help secure lane priority. Heino is a hero who needs recourses to farm and scale in early game. By strengthening the top and mid lanes, they gave Heino enough recourses to reach his power spike. Once he get his core items and mid-game levels, he became an absolute monster, often able to hold off 3 or even 4 opponents in jungle skirmishes. The lineup achieved its purpose, which enabled Heino as a core threat. The team turned his power spike into map-wide pressure, transforming individual strength into a team-wide advantage. Another example is KPL team Foshan DRG. Their jungler 1-1 is known for his unique Neja pick, and was the first to try it after the hero rework. In Game 3 against LGD.NBW, 1-1 locked Neja, and the team backed him with strong picks like Byron for side lane and Sakir as support, providing the space Neja needed to scale. Since LGD had a strong early game lineup with Dun and Mai Shiranui, if DRG didn't support Neja properly, he could have been shut down early. This shows that when a player has a unique comfort pick, optimizing your lineup around it can be crucial for success. Now let's look at the second dimension, patch OP heroes. In today's data-driven environment, it's easy to see which heroes are OP and which are bottom tier. Pro teams know this well. In the Hockey, heroes like Mai Shiranui, Aogran, Diadia, Arli, Dolia, and Lung are commonly seen. In the KPL, strong combos like Da Chao and Yuandan are often picked or banned due to their high impact. Let's break this down with some specific cases. For example, in the S3 Invitational semi-finals, Nongshim went up against Blacklist. Blacklist picked up a Diadia and Arli combo right after Nongshim locked in Dun. In response, Blacklist immediately locked in these strong heroes and ended up winning that game. That's because when strong heroes are combined effectively, their synergy can result in a 1+1, 2 effect. This strategy is also quite common in the KPL. For instance, in Chengdu All Gamers versus Chongqing Wolves Game 2, the Wolves used their first two bans specifically targeting Diadia. With AG already holding a 2-0 advantage, they were determined not to let the Wolves complete their preferred lineup. So instead of letting them complete it, AG broke it apart by picking Arlie and Yuanden. In high-level matchups between top teams, this is a new strategic idea. Instead of banning, disrupt the enemy's lineup by drafting their key pieces. This approach is known as picking instead of banning. When facing a system lineup, we can adopt various counter strategies. Once we secure a strong lineup, the result often delivers a synergy where 1 + 1 becomes greater than 2, maximizing the overall team's potential. Now let's move on to the third dimension of BP considerations, team playstyle. Let's take Chengdu All Gamers as an example. As one of the strongest teams in the current KPL, AG's playstyle has long been studied and emulated by others. AG is known for adjusting their core depending on the BP. It might shift from side lane to mid or from side lane to jungle, but Yinluo is always the true core. So AG's lineups are, more often than not, built around Yinluo. OAG's lineups are, more often than not, built around Yinluo. In this game, Yinluo first picked Lady Sun, and the team followed up by picking Ming, a support who maximizes Lady Sun's lane pressure and accelerates her farm. They also picked Hai Yue to provide a better environment for her in team fights. This match also gave us a textbook example of a classic tactical approach. When a team's core player locks in their signature hero, the rest of the draft often revolves around supporting that pick and filling in the necessary functional roles. I've included two graphics here that illustrate this perfectly. They show AG's gold distribution during the early and mid-game. At the 5min30 mark, AG's marksman and jungler were both trailing behind to the Wolves. But by 10min, Yinluo had overtaken the Wolves players Daozai and Xiaopeng through focused lane control and resource allocation, undefined. Now, let's move into the fourth dimension of BP strategy, opponent's BP strategy. Let me start with a classic example. In the 2024 spring season, between Wolves and AG, AG built a lineup featuring Alain, Aogran, Mai, Lung, and Dolia. The Wolves mirrored AG's jungle, mid, and support picks, but choose Ma Chao and Ho Yi as their solo lanes. Many people think this BP is genius because Ma Chao counters Alain in lane and also performs well against Lung in team fights. Ho Yi also has an advantage in the way against Lung. In the end, the Wolves won this peak matchup, showing the power of counter BP. This is the essence of counter BP. When you know your opponent's likely picks or signature lineups, you can prepare ahead of time and BP in a way that directly limits their impact. Another great example is the grand finals between Estar and EDGM. Coach Hualu directly targeted EDGM's core player, Silva, who had a 90% win rate on Lung at the time. From the red side, Estar used their first ban to remove Lung and restrict Silva's hero pool. When you want to counter a team's key player in the BP, the best time is the first two bans, directly limiting their go-to heroes. If the team relies heavily on that hero or lineup to win games, this early targeting can disrupt their entire strategy, making it harder for them to secure comfort picks, execute their game plan, or maintain their preferred structure. To summarize the four core BP dimensions, start by considering player hero pools, identify your team's core players and playstyle, adapt to OP lineup, and incorporate counter strategies through targeted bans and picks. On top of that, the coach's BP philosophy also plays a big role. For example, some coaches prefer BP well-rounded lineup that highlight each player's strengths, while others exploit opponents' tendencies to dismantle their setups. However, in HOK's global ban pick format, we face a significant challenge. Your available hero pool is limited. With a small number of OP or highly functional heroes, and individual hero pools often narrow, this limitation requires careful strategic consideration. Under these constraints, two extreme approaches often emerge. Two common strategies emerge: all-in BP and mismatch. Personally, I find the all-in BP strategy risky and often inadvisable. It involves committing all your strongest picks into a single game, which can disrupt team synergy. Even if you secure multiple OP heroes, the lineup can fall short if the picks don't synergize well. For example, you might pick 4 or 5 top-tier heroes in one game, but their playstyles or roles don't match. Maybe 2 are designed for river fights and skirmishes, while the others excel at jungle invasion or lane pressure. This usually fails to perform as intended. And if the opponent uses mismatch, purposely sacrificing one game to bait out your best picks, they can still come out ahead, even in a loss. If they win, it's a big win. If they lose, they've still forced you to waste your key heroes. But if you lose your all-in game, that's a disaster. Not only have you lost the point, but you've also depleted your strongest options for the rest of the series. So, is deliberately playing the mismatch the better choice? It can be if executed with purpose. By holding back your top-tier heroes, you can gain a BP advantage in later games. Some lineups are designed to counter very specific setups. If you can bait your opponent into using their main lineup, you can counter it later with safe picks. For example, your Liang or Princess Frost works well against Diadia. If you can force them to use Diadia early with other heroes, your key mages are free to counter their other lineups later. However, this approach comes with its own risks. In a BO5, if you drop a game early just to bait picks, it can be tough to climb back. Mismatch works better in longer formats like BO7 or BO9, where there's more chance to bounce back. In global BP, the more reliable way is to stay balanced, which prepare 2 to 3 practiced lineup styles based on your players' strengths and building those into your BP planning. Another big part of all-in BP is building your lineup systematically. Coaches should know their players' hero pools well enough to plan some reliable teamfight systems around them. These lineups should be practiced to the point where everyone's on the same page. Never pick untrained lineups in a tournament, no matter how strong they look on paper. Competitive play demands hero mastery and synergy. If a player doesn't even understand how a hero works, how can they possibly perform with it? Beyond core lineups, you should also account for signature picks, unique picks that your players play exceptionally well. Maybe it's Neja, Heino, or something else. Once you've got your foundational lineups and signature heroes nailed down, you can start building into counter lineup strategies. For example, Liang plus Princess Frost works great against Diadia lineups. Zhang Fei plus Dong Huang give you strong anti-dive and anti-control options to shut down aggressive lineups. This flow of counter planning is critical. You must need to know exactly what your lineup is good against and what it struggles into. That's how you stay a step ahead in all-in BP. Use your bans smart to target those weaknesses. Ban the key components of enemy lineups or use the picking instead of banning strategies by selecting those heroes the opponent wants. Just deny what they're trying to build. Work closely with your analysts to gather scrim data and intel on what the enemy team is practicing. That way, your bans and picks can strike at their comfort zones. Signature picks also serve as point scorers in the later phases of BP. Heroes players can rely on even outside of team systems. Here is a quick test. Which is not a reasonable BP strategy? A. Considering players' hero pool. B. Patch OP hero. C. Counter opponent's core player. D. All in a BO7 game.